Resuming debate, the honourable member from Ottawa South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's a pleasure to join the debate tonight on Bill C-311. Madam Speaker, this bill is a bill which is being reintroduced under a new colleague, a new MP, a bill that was put forward in the last Parliament by the leader of the NDP. And as such, it really has no material changes compared to its predecessor bill. Before pronouncing on the bill, I just want to take a few minutes to talk a little bit about where we are now nationally with respect to this climate change crisis. In the last 3.5 years, I think it would be fair and objective to describe the government's performance here as varied at best. We really don't know anymore where the government stands on the climate change challenge. Just a year and a half ago, the predecessor Minister of the Environment announced to the country and all the industries who operate their businesses here that there would be, for example, no international trading. Yet the new Minister of the Environment says apparently we're going to be joining the United States in a cap and trade system, as if the United States has even invited us to join. The Government of Canada has said de facto that we have withdrawn from the Kyoto Protocol. We've unilaterally, we're the only country in the world to have signed this treaty to have unilaterally declared we won't use, for example, 1990 as the baseline year. Or, worse, we're not even going to try to meet our targets. So in 2007, we saw a new plan emerge, the so-called Made in Canada plan, called Turning the Corner. We have seen no regulatory text yet in the country. It's apparently supposed to be coming on January 1st, 2010. The problem is that each and every independent group that's looked at the government's plan, and so far our count is now a 12th group, but the 11 groups that have looked at the government's plan so far, not political parties, third-party groups, left-wing groups like the C.T. Howe Institute, Madam Speaker, have said that the government's plan cannot possibly achieve the reductions they claim it will achieve. So right now, I think we're in a situation here of great flux. There are some, for example, in the NGO movement who declare that this particular bill is the right text, or that it's reaffirming the science of climate change and the need to take an evidentiary approach to setting targets. I agree with that claim. There are others in the NGO sector who are telling us in the official opposition that, on the contrary, we don't need to be fixated anymore on targets. But what we need is actually to develop a robust plan here in Parliament, like we tried to do with the government's failed Clean Air Act, when it was rewritten in a special parliamentary committee. A Clean Air Act, by the way, Madam Speaker, which was inspired completely by the Clean Air Act efforts of the former Republican administration in Washington. So now we have a big change. We have a Democratic government in Washington, a new president, using 2005 so far as the baseline year, saying that the Americans will reduce their emissions by 14% from 2005, effectively meaning that we're going back to 1990 levels of U.S. emissions by 2020. The government says this is in line with their targets, so that their targets are yet more advanced, more ambitious than the American targets. The problem is we're talking apples and oranges, because the government is talking intensity targets and the United States are actually talking about absolute cuts. Just recently, President Obama went to Congress, 535 members strong, and said, I'm asking from you a comprehensive cap and trade scheme to be delivered up, along with renewable energy strategies for the United States. Right now, at least in the 110th Congress, Madam Speaker, there are at least 10 different cap and trade schemes on the floor of Congress. 10. Not one or two, but 10. The United States is proposing a massive auction of permits to raise up to $80 billion by 2012. $15 billion of which is to go into renewable energy, $60 billion for tax credits for modest income Americans. The United States are warning their citizenry that the cap and trade system they intend to bring in will have a profound effect, Madam Speaker, on energy pricing. It will, to use the words of the Conservative Party, put a price on everything, increase the price of everything that unfortunate and infantile advertising claim that the government used in the last election campaign to the detriment of the understanding of the Canadian people on the need to act now on the climate change crisis. So we have here a situation where everything appears to be in flux. We found that the vast majority of the powers and the reporting provisions in Bill C-311 are already law as a result of the two Liberal private member bills passed by the last Parliament. One, the Kyoto Protocol Implementation Act, and the second, the Federal Sustainable Development Act. We also know that medium and long-term targets will be set internationally at a United Nations conference culminating in Copenhagen this December. What troubles the official opposition about this bill is that it does prejudge the outcome of those negotiations. However, we have no idea in this Parliament, Madam Speaker, where those negotiations are. Nothing has been disclosed at committee. Nothing has been disclosed in the House. We don't know if Canada is effectively still participating in the post-2012 world of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Having abandoned the Kyoto Protocol, I'm not even sure how Canada can come to the negotiating table with clean hands, as they say in international law, and purport to put forward a position to be received by 170 plus countries that have signed the deal. What concerns us as well on this side, Madam Speaker, is that if the NDP were really serious about improving Canada's climate change laws, would they not be seeking to amend the existing Kyoto Protocol Implementation Act, extending it beyond 2012, for example? Because all of the regulatory standards that we'd like to see and the powers that might or should accrue to a government to actually follow through on these commitments are there. I see in this bill so far nothing that's conferred to a government that it needs in order to move forward on the climate change challenge. Other than enunciating medium and long-term targets, C-311 contains very few provisions, as I said, that are not already under the Kyoto Implementation Act. 90% of the wording, for example, in this bill is word for word the same as those already granted by the Kyoto Protocol Implementation Act. Similarly, the National Roundtable on the Environment and the Economy is already required under the Kyoto Protocol Implementation Act to review the programs undertaken by the federal government to meet its greenhouse gas reduction targets and to report on the effectiveness of the measures, to report to Canadians on how well things are going or are not going. So there's an awful lot of overlap, Madam Speaker. There's an awful lot of overlap, and there's also an awful lot of factors here in play. Now, that being said, it is important, in my view, to take this issue further. It is important to take this bill further. I think it's important to have a close examination of its amendability, for example. Because the situation is so much in flux, because we are waiting to a certain extent, unfortunately, for Washington, because we have no climate change plan from the Conservative government, it is our position that this bill requires more analysis. It requires more examination as we go forward. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Resuming debate.